Hey guys, today's story is about a problem DM who has a very obvious favorite player. Good day, fellow horror enthusiasts. I've been a long-time lurker, but today I've decided to share an old story about my first time taking part in a D&D campaign as a player, which is after 3+ years of DMing. I sincerely hope that it will entertain you as much as it has given me nightmares, so here we go. First and foremost, I kept playing with this group for too long, and I know I should have quit months before I actually did. The reason I didn't is simple. The group was set up by two of my girlfriend's best friends, and she begged me to stay, even just as an excuse to hang out with them. They're cool people, so I endured as much as I could, until it was too much. The cast of this story is myself, of course, my girlfriend, and friend number 1 and 2, as well as protagonist and the GM. The characters and details of the campaign are not very important right now, but I'll be happy to share them in another horror story. For now, we'll be concentrating on the 2 reasons for our collective suffering. Reason number 1 being the protagonist, who was a player with main character syndrome to say the least, and then the GM, who deserves a little bit of an introduction. Our GM, which I consider to be a huge part in turning the game into literal hell, was not very good. His style of GMing included not preparing anything in advance and always improvising everything, railroading everyone on the only path he prepared 10 minutes before the session, not caring about game balance, stealing ideas from the latest video game, book, or movie that he saw, as well as being totally incapable of handling issues between players. I could talk for hours about how much of a disaster this 1-year-long campaign was, but I'll leave it for another time. The last thing that you need to know about this GM is that he basically worshipped the protagonist, frequently asking him for help during sessions and treating him as the best D&D player that ever lived. This is probably what gave protagonist the idea that he could just do anything that he wanted to in the game, since, well, he's so good, obviously. Out of game, the protagonist was pretty chill and usually brought many interesting stories to share with us, which led to most of the table, myself included for a while, to feel sympathy for him. But as time went by, however, his in-game behavior made pretty much everyone regret ever sitting at that table. Aside from the DM, of course, who had no qualms about him or his character. But let's get to the good stuff. I've summed up more than a year of accumulated horror and despair into everything that was wrong about the protagonist and the GM. Please note that not all of this was clear from the beginning, and some things took quite some time to figure out, since both always had a lot of excuses to justify such elements in the game. We'll start off with number 1 being his background. We all started at level 3, so all of the backstories for our characters were pretty simple, such as traveling wizard with a thirst for knowledge, or a wanted rogue looking to make a living. But the protagonist instead presented himself as a demigod knight, firstborn of the most powerful household in the entire kingdom, renowned warrior who won many wars for his king, and to top it all off, descendant of an angel whose blood allowed him to use magic, even as a martial class. The GM allowed everything, since it's such a cool concept, and also gave him extra abilities to match his background, even as a level 3 PC. He was so strong that he could basically wipe the entire rest of the party if he so desired, and this will come into play later. Right, I don't care how optimistic or naive you are, if there's a character in your party at level 3 that can literally kill the entire party with a blink of an eye effectively, and is having the DM give them a lot of crap and are obviously playing favorites, how much more of a red flag do you need? That's already a pretty massive one. I get that he said that this was for his girlfriend, but still, we're starting off pretty strong with this. And when someone noted that this was a little bit too much, the GM replied with, "Well, you could have done the same with your background. Sorry." Except later, when my girlfriend's PC died, she tried to roll up a bard with magical instruments that never failed a note, but it was deemed too powerful by the protagonist and rejected by the DM. So I guess world-ending powers are less dangerous than music. Well, yeah, man. Devil's music will convert you to Satanism and make you sacrifice babies or something. It'll turn you into a heathen, man. For number 2, we'll be going over his amazing roleplay. As soon as session 1 began, the protagonist presented himself as the leader of the party and told everyone to follow his orders. Oh good, so all the players might as well just be NPCs if we're immediately starting off with this guy being the main character, right? And do keep in mind that our characters at this point in time had never met. But since he was a renowned noble warrior, we went along with it. The DM allowed this because... well, it makes sense, right? Everyone would assume that he's in charge because of his background. Yeah. At first, we simply followed his commands and got the game rolling. But things quickly took a turn for the worst. What the protagonist meant with "follow my orders" is that he would handle any plot element, NPC, discussion, decision, strategy, or even our daily schedule. Each attempt of our characters to do something on our own was met with annoyance, and the protagonist always tried to stop us, meddle in, or straight up ask the GM to skip our turns because we're wasting time. I want to proceed. Pillock. The GM, of course, backed him up every time. We sneak out to do something that the protagonist doesn't want us to do. The GM would reply with, "You try to do that, but fail." Or, "You look for this, but can't find it. Sorry." And then immediately goes back to the protagonist. What if we complain about his behavior? "Well, he's just role-playing." We do anything that upsets him? He would roll a +50 on Intimidate, using his angelic aura, and the GM would declare that we were too terrified to even think about challenging him. Now that's what I call fairness. Don't forget fun. And then, number 3, he's the main character. If what I've told you up until now hasn't satisfied your horror hunger, here's some of the highlights of what happened during the actual game. I picked the finest examples, but almost every session included 3 or 4 variants of what is described here. For one, the protagonist never had to make a roll for anything. He was so strong that he couldn't fail, but if I try to persuade a nobleman for information, and I roll a 14, well, it's too low. He doesn't tell me anything. But if the protagonist talks to him, well, he recognizes you as the great heir of a powerful lord and greets you with all the honors. And then proceeds to tell them everything and offer gold as a gift. But no rolls required. For 2, since he's the leader, all of the loot that we got from dungeons and quests was automatically given to him by the GM. He would then decide how to split it, keeping the best and allowing us to have the rest. And if we even once bothered him, we got nothing because we didn't deserve anything. Also, any treasure that we found was locked behind some safety mechanism that only the protagonist could unlock, just to make sure that no one else could take something before him. For 3, the protagonist wanted to have a mount, and he requested a dragon. The GM told him to wait until level 12, since apparently that's the level required to ride a dragon. The protagonist whined because that would take too long, and started to get angry because, well, I'm already powerful enough. I don't think I should wait. The GM ended up having us meet an adult dragon at level 7, who immediately recognized the incredible power of the protagonist and requested to be his mount, of course. And then for 4, after we returned from a battle, the protagonist received a letter. His parents were killed by an evil cult when he was away, so we interpreted it as a plot device to make us fight against the cult. But instead, the protagonist declared that he didn't care about his parents, and only went back home to be proclaimed as the new lord. He gained a castle, a personal army, several servants, and also a ton of gold and magic items that the cult didn't steal for reasons. Nothing was shared with us aside from a couple of items that he already had, and this cult was never brought up again afterwards. Well, congratulations, DM and protagonist, you two have won the game. But this is pretty much everything. There might be some other stuff that I can't really remember, as it's been a while. But I feel like you probably get the picture by now. The campaign pretty much stopped being fun for me, and everyone else after a couple of months. It was fun for you for months with this crap? But we still kept going because we enjoyed each other's company, and our characters had some fun chemistry. In the end, I left the campaign for good after the GM started stealing ideas from my own campaign, and putting them into his game, thinking that I wouldn't notice. I know that they tried to keep things going for a while after giving up. I don't know what the protagonists or the GM are up to these days, but I fortunately found other groups to play with. I'm having fun, and I'm now very careful on not playing favoritism with my players. So at least this helped me host great adventures with great people. Well guys, quite frankly it sounds like a lot of this is riding on the rest of the party for just not speaking up or making changes. They could have tried to find a new DM, and if they couldn't, then one of them could have just picked up the torch. Or, barring that, they could have just found a new thing as an excuse to hang out with. If the friends, the OP, and his girlfriend were still joining after months of this crap, then obviously they all want to do something together, so why subject yourself to crappy D&D? There's plenty of other things that you can do while hanging out, like board games, or bowling, or so on and so forth. But yeah, anyway, that's the end of this one, so, as always, have a good one.